Hi, I'm Pastor Mira, and this is Sermon in 3 Minutes. This past week, we continued looking at the Lord's Prayer. 2 weeks ago, we looked at forgive us our sins, and this past Sunday, we looked at the phrase, as we forgive those who have sinned against us. You know, it's easy to think about God's forgiveness and how much we need and want that, but it's a lot harder to think about forgiving others, particularly when we've been hurt. In the Didache, which is an old writing by the apostles after the New Testament was put together, it said that you should pray the Lord's Prayer 3 times a day. And the first English prayer book actually said you should pray the Lord's Prayer 7 times a day. This prayer has power to transform lives then and now. As a congregation, we continue to encourage everyone to work on praying the Lord's Prayer every day throughout this series. As we look at this phrase, we talked about what's the difference between trespasses, debts, and sins. At the end of the day, theologically, all of them separate us from God and from one another. So it doesn't matter whether we trespass, debt, or sin. Each of them have roots in different translations of the prayer, but they all keep us from God. In 1 Colossians 3:13, Paul says, "Forgive as the Lord forgave you." And at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Being disciples, we are called to forgive because we have the example of Jesus that showed us what forgiveness is. Now, forgiveness is not cause and effect. If we forgive others, it doesn't mean then God will forgive us. But to fully know and understand God's mercy and God's forgiveness, Jesus says you need to learn how to forgive others. But it's so hard, isn't it? Actually forgiving others. Don Underwood, who writes on this topic, says that we want God to have short-term memory when it comes to remembering our sins, but we have elephant memories when it comes to remembering the sins of others. And that's true. And yet, as disciples, we're called to forgive because there's a freeing power in it, both for ourselves who have been hurt and also for those who have acted in ways that have hurt us. The book Amish Grace from 2007 tells about the story of the Amish community outside of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and how the 10 schoolgirls were shot and killed. That same week, the families came together and were able to share forgiveness to the shooter and the shooter's family. They were an example that continues to inspire and challenge me today every time I think about forgiveness. Now, there's a difference between condoning and forgiving. We don't have to condone any act, whether it's sexual abuse, which has been in the news lately, or whether it's Amish schoolgirls. But we need to be able to forgive, because when we can forgive, we allow the painful memories to start to go away. Doesn't mean we forget, but we allow God's grace into our heart. This week, our encouragement is to help heaven come to earth, that as you show others forgiveness, you may show them a glimpse of God. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.